Like most people, I've made quite a few dumb mistakes playing Pokemon. In particular, back when I was a kid who thought status moves bad. Today, I'm gonna list some of the dumbest mistakes I've ever made. This first category is mistakes I've made that you also likely made. It was an example earlier, but yes, I never used status moves as a kid. After all, if it doesn't do damage, then it's useless, am I right? Who cares if Calm Mind raises special attack? I can just attack twice. But I can take this a little further in my case. As a kid, when I saw that moves like close combat lowered stats, I would never teach them to my Pokemon. Why would I want to lower stats? I won't be able to raise them again. Now we have the next mistake we've all made. Not paying attention to whether a move was physical or special, and not knowing if a Pokemon should know physical or special moves. Most of the time, a kid would just see a higher number and teach that move. So in my case, I taught Thunder Punch to a Gardevoir. My logic was that my Gardevoir had an attack nature, a problem in of itself, but was my reason for having a physical attack. This next mistake is one we've all probably done at least once, and that is teaching a permanent party member an HM move. I may have to explain this as the last time HMs were a thing was 10 years ago, what the fuck? But HMs were a move you had to teach at least one Pokemon to progress. The problem was that these moves could not be forgotten normally. You had to talk to a designated move deleter to get rid of HM moves. And Child Me, in all his wisdom, taught his starter an HM move. In Platinum, I taught my starter Monferno cut on Route 205. I was apparently too lazy to just head back to Floroma Town for a PC, or just go through Eterna Forest again. Then in Pokemon Y, I taught my Greninja cut in the post-game. Next up is buying TCG cards without actually knowing how to play. It's not like I didn't try to learn, I just couldn't process what the J-Witch was talking about. But even if I didn't know how to play, that didn't stop me from playing. As kids, my relatives and I would just play the TCG regardless of the rules, playing evolutions regardless of having the basic card or not, and completely ignoring energy cards and just using moves willy-nilly. We also thought that prize cards were what you got if you won, which definitely led me to losing some cards to my cousins. But you know what? After 11 years of not knowing how to play the TCG, 11 years? Are you serious? I finally, somewhat, know how to play the TCG thanks to TCG Pocket. I mean, I don't want to brag, but I have the gold emblem for both of the Genetic Apex events. Now we have a mistake most commonly associated with Gen 3 players, but I thought several Platinum Dex Pokemon were Sinnoh Pokemon. In order of the Platinum decks, here's who I thought were Gen 4 Pokemon. The Badoo line, Walbadoo and Roserade are Gen 4 Pokemon. Roselia isn't, but this one is a pretty common mistake. I thought that Wurmple line was the real Sinnoh early bug Pokemon. To be fair, I associate the early bugs with being a 3-stage evolution line, and Kricketot and Kricketune are only 2 Pokemon. And finally, the Medicham line, which I thought since Maylene has a Meditite in her gym battle. You may have noticed, but these are all Hoenn Pokemon. That's because Hoenn was the region I was least familiar with. I grew up on the DP anime and was familiar with the Kanto and Johto series. Meanwhile, I have yet to watch a full episode of the Advanced series. Next, we have a mistake that borders on outright regret. I deleted and reset my first ever save file of a Pokemon game. Yeah, in 2016, I decided that I wanted to replay Pokemon Platinum. It was the middle of Chugga Conroy's Let's Play and I was feeling nostalgic. And so I decided to reset my original Platinum save file without having transferred my original Platinum team. My first ever team, my first ever starter, all gone forever. And I still remember what my original Chimchar's nature was. My first ever Chimchar had a timid nature. I remember that because I, not knowing what natures were, always imagined that I could help my Chimchar gain some confidence. But now, that'll never happen. What sucks even more is I never even finished that original playthrough. But more on that later. Now we get to our next category of dumb mistakes I made as a kid. Mistakes I made that I doubt most other others have made too. Going from most understandable to what the heck was I thinking? Prior to the EXP share being permanent, you had to do what fans call switch training for Pokemon to get EXP. I did sort of do something like this, but I thought the only way to get EXP was for a Pokemon to get a KO, meaning I'd switch weaker Pokemon against much stronger opponents, hoping my level 1 Togepi could somehow KO anything higher leveled. I, of course, eventually noticed this was an inefficient way to train, but instead of correcting it, I just switched to another inefficient method. Instead, I would send out my lower leveled Pokemon first in battles. I guess my new logic was to use weaker Pokemon to soften things up, and then finish things off with my stronger Pokemon. This next thing is a funny coincidence with recent knowledge in mind. As a kid, I thought Pikachu was meant to be a small tiger. It was the back stripes and Raichu being orange. What makes this a coincidence is a Pikachu fact I recently discussed, where Nintendo of America originally wanted to change Pikachu into a tiger with huge breasts. We have another mistake involving me not understanding the J-Wits. As a kid, I tried to breed my starter Infernape to get a Chimchar egg. However, I tried that by breeding a male Infernape. I watched the J-Wits' breeding video and wanted to try breeding myself. However, I completely misunderstood how breeding worked. I thought I could easily breed an Infernape and Houndoom, but the mom was Houndoom, so I wouldn't have even gotten a Chimchar. And to add insult to injury, I quit before I even got a single egg. But that would not be the last time I misunderstood a J-Wits video. When the J-Wits uploaded his shiny Pokemon video 12 years ago. The numbers just keep getting higher, huh? I watched him discuss the various ways you can get a shiny, and around 6 minutes and 11 seconds, he showed off this screenshot, briefly explaining how the Poke Radar can increase shiny odds. But you notice how 4 of the grass patches are highlighted? When I was a kid, not actually paying attention to what was being said, I thought this was the J-Wits providing a cheat sheet for shiny hunting. So I went to Route 201 and repeatedly walked to these 4 spots, thinking they had higher shiny odds or something. But don't worry, I did eventually use the Poke Radar, just not knowing what the rules were. Like most kids, I had no idea how the Poke Radar worked, so I was definitely breaking my radar chain constantly. Now for probably the reason I was the dumbest Pokemon player ever. A through line with these last couple stories was me not paying attention, and that is why I wasn't able to finish any childhood playthrough. I'll discuss how this affected my Explorers of Sky playthrough first. As a kid, I was never able to progress after defeating Drowsy. After Drowsy, you get new story events by checking the bulletin board. However, as a kid, I never checked the bulletin board. This is despite Chatot telling you to do that very thing every morning. So I'd beat Drowsy and essentially soft lock myself. I'd end up just going through the same first dungeons without any jobs. And at most, I'd play through Bidoof's Wish for some different content. This led to me just continually resetting my save file over and over again. Luckily, I finally beat Explorers of Sky for the first time in 2016, when I finally knew how to read. But now for what I've been alluding to for a couple minutes now. The fact that until 2016, I never beat Platinum as a kid. The same childhood save file where I taught my Infernape cut, the save file where I tried to breed said Infernape with a Houndoom, the very first save file of mine which I deleted, I only ever got 5 gym badges in before erasing that save file. The point in which I got soft locked, aka I just didn't know where I was supposed to go, was when you reach Celestic Town to meet Cynthia's grandmother. Normally to progress the game, you're supposed to follow Cynthia's grandma into the Celestic Town cave. There, you would battle Cyrus and get the Surfeit gem. I never did this. Instead, I just watched the granny go into the cave and just walked away, not knowing where the Surfeit gem was, which I did know I needed. And that is why I never beat Platinum as a kid. And in all the time I spent trying to find the Surfeit gem in game, it never occurred to me that I could just look up a walkthrough online, or you know, go into the cave. But to really emphasize how much I sucked at Pokemon as a kid, that wasn't even the first time I got stuck playing Pokemon Platinum. Sure, there were times where I seemingly hit a brick wall with a hard hard battle, struggling against Rourke, Fantina, and the berry battle after Fantina. But of course, through training, I eventually overcame those obstacles. But before getting stuck due to me not having the Surfeit gem, I actually got stuck in Crasher Wake's gym somehow. In fact, I distinctly remember how much this gym puzzle frustrated me. I just couldn't figure out the right button combo for the longest time. At one point, I even thought I got myself stuck and couldn't escape. Maybe my depth perception just sucked as a kid, I honestly don't know. Another reason I was frustrated was I had just evolved my Monferno. I'd battle Berry outside the gym, evolve my Monferno, then not be able to figure out the puzzle, leading to me soft resetting, meaning I had to battle Berry again, evolve Monferno again, and then soft reset again. Why didn't I just save after the Berry battle? You tell me. In short, kids like me are why gym puzzles have become stupidly easy. And if you thought that was dumb, wait until you see what's next. Getting confused with the type chart is a pretty common thing. In particular, a lot of people think things like rock is immune to electric, or bug is weak to ice. This is likely due to how common some dual typings are. Brock's team is immune to electric, so all rock types must be too. Butterfree is weak to ice, so all bug Pokemon are. My mix-up with the type chart though is hard to explain. For whatever reason, I thought dark types were weak to grass moves. This came down to me misremembering dialogue in the anime. In the episode where Ash's Turtwig battled Paul's Honchkrow, the episode Turtwig evolved and immediately became a punching bag, I could have sworn that I heard Brock say Ash had the advantage. Of course, it would be the opposite. Honchkrow is a flying type, which is super effective against grass types. And, shocker, Dark is not weak to grass moves. But while playing Platinum, I had no reason to think otherwise. I never had a grass type or dark type on my team. I only ever caught the Houndoom to breed with Infernape, meaning I never saw any evidence to the contrary. It wasn't until I saw the type chart that I learned the truth. And there you have it, folks. The dumbest mistakes I've made playing Pokemon. What did you think about these mistakes? How many of these are you also guilty of? Or better yet, what dumb mistakes have you made? Let me know in the comments below. And become a member if you're interested. It's only $2 a month. Have a nice day, you wonderful people. Here's one last dumb mistake I made as a kid that borders on regret. As a kid, I never got Heart Gold, Soul Silver, or the Unova games. When I started getting into Pokemon, my cousin already had Soul Silver. Since I wanted to be different and have Chimchar, I went with Platinum, but I never went back to get the Johto remakes. And for whatever reason, I thought I was too cool for Gen 5.